Earlier, well, not earlier, some time ago, I tested a Fleta V3, so it's a ZX V3. This is by Muchmore, and this one's the V2. Unfortunately, I lost most of the footage with the KV, but no big deal because I managed to save the data. So this would be the regular motor. This is not the Outlaw motor, this is just the V2. And it is a 21.5, and I figured I'd try this one out. So I'm actually planning on running this after I'm finished with the Surpass, which I'm actually liking, so I can't make up my mind there. But if you look at the Gauss reading, there's probably a rev motor. So let's go to the data. Let's see, where did I record this? So here we go, Muchmore V2. So I'm just calling it V2. They're both the Fleta ZX. But here we go. KV, sorry, I don't know why I said KV, Gauss, Gauss, so we're under 1500, and so something that I've never talked about, so if you look at rotors, I might as well mention it now. If you look at rotors, some rotors will have something like this, and they'll have this symbol here. What this refers to is, maybe I'll do a separate video about this once, it refers to the inside diameter of the magnet. So think of the magnet as a cylinder, right? The shaft goes in the middle. This is the inner diameter. So this is 7.25 millimeters in inner diameter of the magnet. This is the outer diameter. So if you have a rotor that's a 12.5, and then you see this symbol, and then you see a 5, it's a much bigger magnet because it has a smaller inner diameter. Versus this would be a smaller magnet, well, mass-wise, or volume-wise. But anyway, so you'll see sometimes that, for example, Hobbywing, when you're buying Hobbywing rotors, you will see this. So that's what that means. But I'll drop pictures in the other video sometime in the future. But anyway, moving on. So as we can see, this is pretty low Gauss. Now, I am not surprised it is low Gauss because the rotor measures 24.3 in length, so the magnet, I should say, by 12.47. Most of these are, close to 12.5. But the point is, we're looking at 24 in length instead of 25, right? Plus the decimal. So it's a short magnet. Usually, smaller magnet, less Gauss. That's usually pretty normal, assuming the let's just say magnetism per area is the same. Well, per square. But when you have something like this, a shorter magnet and then less Gauss, you can generally expect more revs. And if we compare now the KVs, we should expect much higher KVs. So we're going to ignore the 7.2. That one's pointless. But if we look at the 5.2, normally I now shoot for that 5. Once I get that 5, I pretty much stop. Which is why I have less data on this one compared to some of the others. But if we look at this 49 degrees, we're looking at 3,300 kV. So that's 3,310. I was rounding. But if we compare it to some of the other ones, wow, this one revs, and it revs a lot. If we look at the Reedy, so this is a Reedy that I tested previously. This is the SP5. That one's more of a torque motor. The Gauss for this one was 1670, 1660, 1670, something around those numbers. Here we go, SP5, 1670. So as you can see, it's over 200 Gauss more. So that is a lot more rotor strength on that Reedy, but this Fleta V2 has much more speed. And that's something that you can see. So application's really going to determine which is the best option. But let's see. So if we go back to this, we have a 5.2, and this is the KV over 3,000. So there's a clear difference compared to the SP5. But let's look at the S Plus, the Reedy S Plus. This is also a rev motor. And let's see, 5.2, 5.3, close enough. We're looking at about 3,000 kV. So it's clear to see the difference when it's a rev motor versus a torque motor. And we can see that in the Gauss as well. So if I were to compare those just to show you, since those are the most recent ones that I have done, this one is, let's call this 1450 for the purpose of this. Whereas the Reedy S Plus, we're looking at 1500. So is the Muchmore V2 a higher revving motor than the Reedy S Plus? Yes, it is. Is the S Plus a little torqueier? Yes, it is. So that's going to make the difference between the two. So if I were to, say, categorize these between which one revs higher to which one revs lower, the Muchmore V2, that Fleta V2, is going to rev higher than the Reedy S Plus, than the Reedy SP5. Now, if I were to range these in torque, which that's easy to estimate based on, or judge, I should say, based on the Gauss and the kV output, the SP5 is definitely the torqueiest of them, followed by the S Plus, followed by the Muchmore V2. So again, it just depends on what you are using it for. Trinity, for example, Trinity recommends motors with less torque, or let's say generally lower Gauss, higher kV, for surfaces with less traction, so lower traction surfaces. And Trinity generally recommends the high torque motors, which generally have a lower kV as well along with it. They generally have a stronger rotor, as a result lower kV. So Trinity generally recommends that for high traction surfaces. So it's not necessarily that one is better for the other overall, it's just one is more appropriate than the other depending on application. And now that I'm looking at this, is actually worth comparing to some of the Trinity rotors. So these are some of the Trinity rotors that I've measured in the past, and I do have some videos with an Xfactor where I swap out some of these rotors and then some with the slot machine, back when I was curious what the effects were. Anyway, you can go ahead and compare these. But going back to kV, so 49, this is probably the highest revving motor so far. Keep in mind, the rotor strength isn't that high either. That's how you get those high revs. So you're going to have to gear down. But I'm really curious. I want to see how this one works, because if I set it to 4.4 amps, 3140 kV, 48 degrees, I should be able to run relatively cool and be able to make some of that up with gearing. So I'm really curious. But right now I'm running another motor, so that's going to have to wait. But anyway, those are some of the specs that we have here. So this being said, I hope this information was useful or at least entertaining. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.
What? Oh, my hair! My tongue! My rod!